evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 105 of New York Red Bull Discussion Group, the podcast. I am Gary Redmond. Greetings and salutations. Good to see you guys here. So we have a great show for you guys tonight. Of course, we're going to talk about the draw that shouldn't have happened, but did happen, of course, was the match recap. We're going to lead that off with the Los Angeles Football Club versus New York Red Bulls. And then in a 2-2 draw, we're going to give out the heroes and the goats, of course, on that match. And then we're going to get Carlos is going to get you guys set up for our next match, which happens to be the New York Red Bulls versus Vancouver Whitecaps FC. And yet another old friend will be making his appearance. His name is Brian White. Of course, we have a special guest, as always, Anthony Merced of AJM Sports FC. Of course, he'll come by with his monthly Red Bull download. He's going to school you guys with some information that you usually haven't heard from in between the lines. And if you're coming in online right now for some questions, hit him hard because he's going to try to answer much you can. And, of course, naturally, match reviews. Of course, the New York Red Bulls 2, who played their game up in Chester. Andres Reyes was making his cameo appearance. And, of course, New Jersey, New York Gotham FC, who was over in Washington. And the trip didn't do so well, and we'll tell you why. Of course, naturally, the hot takes from all of everybody in the live audience. I'm seeing you guys log in right now. Good to see you. Hope you got, get those hot takes ready, because I know you can. And, of course, naturally, before we wrap things up, go to bold predictions. Now, if you missed the live show, which is happening right now, you can catch the recording on our YouTube channel as always. Don't forget to like and subscribe for that. When the next time the next show comes up, you can be alerted. Goals TV, we have solved that little problem. We're going to start uploading our episodes there. And, of course, as always, our wonderful home at Spotify.com, and all of our episodes will be uploaded the very next day. And if you happen to have any feedback, okay, positive, negative, or anything else, any suggestions to make this show, your show, our show better, please email us at rbdgthepodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that's rbdgthepodcast@gmail.com. And so, with that said, let's get going. First, let me introduce my two co-hosts. Guys have been in the original three is back, including this strange guy who we haven't seen since, week 2? Carlos Cano makes his triumphant return, and he looks like he's loaded for bear. He's been seeing everything else. But let's begin with this. Gentlemen, how was your weekend? And let's get started. Carlos, how was your weekend, man? Good to see you.
Not too bad, except for, if you're a Barcelona fan, wasn't the best weekend. But otherwise, very good. Excited to be back. Happy to be back amongst the faithful.
The furious faithful. And living live, of course, in Casa de Nunez out in New Jersey, Miguel Nunez, who is, tensed up a little bit because, Arsenal won, but it's no longer in their hands, isn't it?
Yeah. Arsenal has to be perfect. Man City has to drop points. So, it's not looking too good. It looks like it's time for the annual Arsenal collapse. Although I'm hoping that isn't the case. Okay. So, but what are you going to do? All right.
Let's begin. All right. Somewhere out in Los Angeles, Red Bulls and LAFC tangled for the 4th time in their history. And it started out well, but we haven't beaten these guys. And when it was all said and done, we still haven't beaten these guys. So I'm going to start off with you, Miguel. You was watching the game very closely. Your thoughts before kickoff. What was your thoughts in this match?
Well, you know what? Before kickoff, I said to myself, if we can get a draw, it's a good result, okay? Because you go, you go away. You go away to a team like LAFC, and a draw is a pretty good result, But then, Gary, we should have won. Okay, we should have won this.
So we're looking at a glass half empty, glass half full, glass half empty sort of thing.
Because you know what? When you get to the 80th minute and you get that go ahead goal, and you're thinking, okay, now we won the game. All we got to do is just pack it in, and then we've won. Okay, and then they can't defend that corner kick in the 95th minute, they can't defend that, and the guy Mwanga scores a golazo. Okay, I just don't know how things like that happen, Gary. Okay, but you know what? Never mind that, Gary.
Never mind
because you know what? There's a guy by the name of Elias Manuel.
We'll get to him in a second.
He should have won. He should have won the game for us after that tying goal by LFC. And the other thing I would say, it's like it's kind of odd that all 4 goals came as a result of what do you call it? Set plays.
Set plays. Set pieces.
Yeah, a corner, 3 corners and a PK. So
teams that believe it or not, set pieces, of course, is a lost art, right, Carlos? And it does make a difference whether you win or you lose with them. Of course, naturally, you would want to score goals, to run a play, but when you really need to get that goal, when you really need to, set pieces are going to carry you. We've seen many games we've seen teams live and die on the set piece.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt.
Okay. The whole craziness began, for those of you who have forgotten, in the 8th minute. And believe it or not, as Miguel alluded to, a set piece. Here's goal number 1.
As tough as they come, we'll get you an update if we get one. There's the corner kick. And there's the goal. They didn't get it at first, but they get it here. Sean Nealis is going to claim it. The Red Bulls, who've come out shoved like a cannon, lead it 1-0, 8 minutes in.
Look at the left arm of Nealis over Segura, maybe pulling him a little bit.
Actually, the goal did not go to Nealis. It was an own goal. Went off an LAFC player who was replacing Aaron Long, who slammed his body against the far post and really injured himself. I hate to see him go out like that. But it seems that this whole theme so far, the last couple, third straight game, we're going against old friends, guys who used to be on this team, Aaron Long, and then, of course, Brian White coming in next week. But it didn't, it was doing quite well into the 67th minute where for the most part, we've heard the word soft penalty come into play. The penalty was questionable. It was looked at, but unfortunately, it went on, and of course, Dennis Bouanga scored the first of 2.
Denny Bouanga perfect for penalties, 5 for 5 in his LAFC days. We get 6 in the 67th. Bouanga tucks it away. He worked hard for that, won the penalty, and converted his 4th of the season. It's 1-1.
Here's the execution with confidence, composure, inside of the right foot. Coronel can't do much. The ball touching the back of the net and getting the equalizer. What a game. What a win we have, Max. And it's just the beginning of it.
Oh, yes, the plot thickens now.
Oh, by the way, the voice you've been hearing is Max Bretos. Before his stint with Apple TV, he was the play-by-play announcer for LAFC. That's probably the reason why he's having a little bit of juice into the goals to score. But enough about that. We won't get that far. But the game was tied 1-1 at that point, and pretty much we were all thinking, tie in a row, no big deal. And then my captain, Mr. Forsberg.
John Tolkien to take. We've seen some training ground deliveries off these set pieces, too. This a little more direct. Tolkien gets it in. Oh, Forsberg! Onside! Smashes it home in the 81st minute. The Red Bulls take the lead against the run of play. And again, off a corner kick.
Great delivery. In-swinger. Complicated ball. You were mentioning it, Max. Set pieces.
It was checked to see if he was offside. Goal stood. And at that point, Red Bull fans had visions of victory dancing in their heads, right? We were thinking, okay, statement win. Winning against LAFC, who's not playing their best football, but pretty damn good anyway you look at it. We come home with 3 points. We're also going to take the lead in the East and everything else. But then, calamity defensively, down to until 9 minutes, and then we 4 minutes into stoppage time. Heartbreak.
They go short. Tillman, space for Sergi Valencia. Numbers in there in black. Looking for Chanot. Jumping up Mueller. He's been a handful. Buwanga! 95th minute. Not from a penalty. Saint-Denis. Danny Buwanga.
We were talking about set pieces, and this coming off a set piece, Danny Buwanga, with time and space, he fakes.
Any way you look at it, it was a terrific game. Of course, we should have gotten 3 points, but of course we settled for 1. But you got to feel, guys, for Noah Ellie. I mean, my goodness. I mean, this has happened again. I mean, the first time this happened, of course, versus Orlando. Now, once again in LAFC. Even my friends were wondering why was he there in the first place. But if you're trying to, help defend, you're caught in the right place, wrong time, that sort of thing, and that's the way you kind of feel for him. So at that point, Carlos, what are you thinking at when you saw the goal after that point?
I think generally I thought that, and this is what I've been really thinking about this team and a lot of the results they've been getting all season, and particularly on Saturday night. I think if we look back to last season, that's a game that last season's team loses.
Agreed.
In LA.
Agreed.
Right? And this season, we're either getting results during games that we typically in the past, in the last couple of years, would have lost. Right? And so that's what I take away. So I'm, I definitely come at this being half glass full. It would have been nice to get 3 points on the road before coming home. But LA is a good team, right? So you can't take that away from them.
Nope.
I thought Red Bull played a solid game. I don't think that they got the result that they did because of silly mistakes, again, as it would have been in the past. I also think that Manuel is either the unluckiest guy on the face of the planet because he hits the crossbar literally like without fail. It's just apparently can only find the back of the net when he plays Charlotte. I don't know. But otherwise, again, it would have been nice to get 3 points, but 1 point going out west, and Lord knows historically going out west has never fared well for us. And this dates back to forever when the Red Bulls go out west. So let's come home and let's handle business versus Vancouver when they come into our house on Saturday.
All right. Some cleanup here before we begin. Of course, the game ended in a 2-2 draw. Denis Mwanga, the 67th minute, and the penalty, and the 95 minutes in the stoppage time. Segura was the one that scored that old goal in the 8th minute, and of course, Forsberg in the 81st minute after that. That was his second goal of the season. Defender Dylan Nealis tallied his second assist of the season on one of those goals. Of course, Frankie Amaya made his 100th career MLS start. Kudos for this guy. So far so good, of course, and it puts the Red Bulls in despite that fact, puts the Red Bulls in a very nice position. Okay, second in the East, second overall, believe it or not, but 1 game in hand. Okay, and that's going to disappear pretty soon. So you're liking where they are, but folks, let's put it this way. Would it have been great if we would have finished the weekend in first place? Yes. Are we mad that we're in second place? No. No one should. I mean, no one really shouldn't be angry at this point because we were all thinking that these guys are fighting for playoff position, right? For playoff position. But look where they are right now. If you take a look at, their seasonal record, ladies and gentlemen, there's only a digit in the loss column. 1. Okay, after 9 games played. So you gotta tip your hat that something over there is working. Something is definitely cooking. Okay, with Sandro Schwartz and the crew. I've never seen a team so composed, but yet they're never out of it. Right? This was the trait that they brought over. Right? From last season, how they always fought, they always were in games and such like that. And then it was either a win or they made a mistake late, Miguel, and it was a loss, to what Carlos alluded to. Okay. But as far as their resiliency, I'll ask you. I mean, you set the barometer pretty high beginning of the season. Now 9 games in. Okay, are you impressed with their tenacity? Are you impressed that they fight like hell, but there's a little niggling about closing out games?
Well, yeah, most definitely. I am impressed. They're right there.
Oh, by the way, that's not and folks, that's not easy. He's not easily impressed. But go ahead.
Listen, it just kills me that we're missing that piece, Gary. And you know what that piece is, okay? If we had that piece, okay, I'd be even more impressed because I feel that we would be winning games. Okay. You know what? I'm shocked that you didn't show that Elias Manuel miss, by the way. Okay. Because come on. My kid makes that. My kid makes that. Come on.
Unfortunately, there was not enough tape for me to actually stretch that out. Unfortunately, but I hear definitely what you're saying.
And also, as we were speaking before the show started, you know what? What I want is for them to bring in somebody better than Van Zier. Okay, like Van Zier should be our number 2. Okay.
Okay.
I'd like a number one.
No argument there.
Yeah. I mean, get rid of Manuel and get rid of Corey Burke and bring in that one guy, okay, that we can rely upon to just bang him in. Okay. That's it. That's all I want. Thank you.
You're welcome. Vincent Escobar. Good evening, sir. How you doing? They're making a huge mistake of not trying to get some players before the windows ends. That's not what I heard. What I've heard that they are trying to get players, but it's been slow going. And, of course, around this time of year during the transfer window, they can't really do anything until, I believe, July. Anthony is going to fill that, that void in when he comes in after the break. And, of course, to everyone's credit, he had the goal scored as typically late for this team and past teams to give up goals late a lot of the time. This is what we talked about, mistakes, right? You have a player like Noah Ellie who's, he's not a teenager, but he's young, okay? So it's not like we had a veteran core in the backfield. And that's probably the question I'm hearing here from John Amaral. Not sure why Noah is moving back instead of moving forward. This is what my girlfriend pointed out, right? She was like, well, wait a minute. Why are you backing up toward the net? Move forward. Close that, close the distance. And she was saying that to all the players, guys. She said, wait, you see a guy in black with a ball, you close that distance. You cut off those lanes. And they didn't do that. They just stood around and gave these guys, a Boanga. She was like, why would you give this dude space? He was hunting for the ball. And looking at the heat map, thank you, footmob.com, the heat map, he was all over the place.
Yeah, that was the issue there. I think, I feel like blame is being wrongly placed on Ellie. It took an unlucky deflection if you really looked at it.
Not blaming
because of where he was placed.
Yeah, I mean,
it was on. That was real. And if you were watching after the fact, Tolkien was that was on Tolkien.
Yeah, that's what she was talking about.
Close that gap, right?
Yeah, right. That's who she was talking to. She was like, "Wait a minute,
definitely."
Where's Tolkien?
If you watch after the goal is scored, Tolkien's definitely feeling some kind of way about himself because he knows better. But again, and this is one of the things that we, I think for so long we've been so jaded because the team has just not has not performed to our expectations. But we have to remember that there's another team on the field, and their guys are just as good. Some of their guys are a little better than ours. Bouanga's one of them. He's good. He's a good player.
Yeah.
Like, he's gonna make a play like that. 9 times out of 10. Sometimes, and that's just the reality of the game.
If he's not closed down, if they give him all day,
right.
Okay, there you
of course. And look, it takes 2 to tango, right?
All
so
right.
I mean, it takes 2 to make that play. A good striker who's going to nail that every time, but also a defender who, in this case, is just executing bad defending.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you say, okay, it's great that it's great that we got 3 points, but I mean, what would have been, right? I mean, it kind of stinks a little bit, but a point on the road is better than a loss. Let's put it that way, even if it sometimes feel that way. Of course, everyone's talking about the play-by-play. Of course, like I said, Max Bredos, I like him. I like him a lot. Good dude. Listen to him during Fox Sports, SoccerNet back in the day when he made his appearance in MLS during this, the heydays. So I'm glad he's doing very well over the West Coast. And remember, okay, a lot of the pairing between the play-by-play guys and the analysts are at random. So he just so happened to be, there for home game. Yeah, I know.
At random.
Right. Okay. At random.
Okay.
But at the same time, whenever Kanji, okay, and we had him on this show, when he appears on Red Bull games, you can just hear the howling. Okay, especially from my friends over in NYCFC. Where's Tolleson? Where's our guy?
I mean,
you got
listen, for whatever it's worth, and granted, we have a bias.
I mean, the complaint goes off the chain, fellas. I mean,
we have a bias because we love Cangelosi.
Yeah.
But Saturday night, I mean, and I like Max Bredos. I think he's great. I think he's a great soccer person.
He's good. He's good.
I mean, some of the commentary regarding the foul that led to the penalty was. I'm like, dude, what are you watching? That is the softest foul in the history of the game. Like, just call a spade a spade. Like, it was like,
Homer
to me,
much?
It was a foul, but it was soft.
Somebody said this in someone's in the game thread. Homer much?
Yeah,
I mean,
Homer and a half.
I mean,
both of them.
I want to thank everyone for joining the game thread. Of course, Mark Coates had to come out of retirement to help out our wounded friend Bartley. He's still on the mend right now. Hopefully, we can be able to get back back with the rest of the team.
And here's another thing. I have a gripe for the 17 people that listen to us live on YouTube. Can we have a talk with MLS and the schedule? Why do we always have to go out to LA? Why doesn't LA ever come out to us? I feel like every season we take a trip to see
out in the West Coast,
LA
right?
Team
West Coast
Seattle.
bias.
Why don't they come this way? It's ridiculous.
West Coast bias,
to say the least.
I mean, you know what? I mean, when I looked at the schedule when it came out, I was like, well, I was thinking about taking a trip to LA, but then my job got in the way. I mean, that was my one and only chance to go see them live out there. And of course, I got friends and family out in LA. They're always trying to get me out there. But yeah,
LA is great, Gary. I love LA.
I mean, it's kind of ridiculous that the only team that we go out. I mean, I think NYCFC has been there a couple of times, but either we're playing the LA Galaxy out in LA Galaxy. I think they only showed up maybe, it's been a while since they, it's supposed to be a rotation. It's supposed to be where it's an extended home and home. At least that's, I think, it is with the schedule. We go to their place in the West Coast, and then the year after that, they come to us. So maybe next year, LAFC makes their debut trip to the cathedral. We'll see what happens from there. So I mean, it's a point. It's nothing to get mad about, but unless you talk to people in the group, well, no. They wanted to win, and they wanted to win and everything else. I mean, and that's one of the things. Orlando, Chicago, LC draws, and Steve Sport, we dropped. That now here's a concern. Okay, this is 6 points, and Mark brings out a very important point. So we drop points in Atlanta, we drop points in Chicago, and now LAFC. Okay, that's 6 points. Okay, yeah, 2 on the road, and one we played a man down for over a half. But good teams, right, guys, close out games. So if that's the one problem that this team is having, I'll ask you two before we bring Anthony in the break. Is it on the coach or is it on the players for their mental fortitude to say, okay, we got a lead and you ain't getting it back?
To me, it's on with this team as constructed. To me, it is, I guess you could say, a combination of coach and front office. Because one of the things that we said previewing the season was this team has no depth.
Oh, by the
and
way,
that is
LAFC
the
was here
problem.
in
As a matter
2018. Yeah,
We have no depth, right? So who's coming off of the bench that is, like again, it's one of the things that I guess I miss about back in the day, right? Where you had the super subs, where you had the people from our bench that came off of it and it was like, all right, like it's time to get back in it. And you knew that you had a chance. This team doesn't have that right now. And that's something that I hope beyond the immediate need of, again, still finding that striker, but that we also address the lack of depth on the bench.
Well, it's not just us, okay? Almost every team in the league is pretty much set up the same way. There are some teams, there are some clubs, they're pretty top heavy, okay? And you really don't want that because once upon a time, that was us, okay? When we had a bunch of superstars, the ham and eggers, and kids. Remember those roster days? And we were blown away by teams that had deep benches. It's not about spending. It's about how you spend it across the board. Now, the one thing about the Red Bulls, they got talented kids coming up the pipe. Whether you like it or not, here they come, right, fellas? So we see a couple of dozen guys on New York Red Bull 2 making some noise. Sooner or later, they're going to be on the roster, but they're not ready yet. But at the same token, you got a squad that's got a couple of holes on the roster, one huge hole that needs to be filled, and all eyes are on Mr. All eyes on Schneider, and of course, we haven't even heard a word from our new sporting director, but I know he's out there, making some calls and stuff like that. All eyes are on them. They're saying, okay, I know you're not going to dive into the transfer window, whatever the case may be, or maybe that that's what they thought they heard, but when you can't rely on New York Red Bull 2 players because that's what the other guy did to the team's detriment. Okay, they kept calling up these guys, to fill in benches, and honestly, that's not going to get it done. As much as I love the development, for the team that they're doing right now for those kids, so they're just not just sitting in the ethos and not sitting in the either, okay, waiting for their turn. But at the same token, guys, if you're a sporting director or head of sport, you should be on the phone 24/7 so you can able to get any guy. You should be, trolling through the leagues out there so you can able to pick up, a diamond in the rough, which is something that the Red Bull's specialty. But yet, when you don't hear very much, you don't even hear so much as a rumor, for many of the fans who see this team and like the way it is, they want more. They expect more, but they're not getting it. And that's, and that's a thing that, at least to me, that's a concern. And I agree with I agree with Vincent. Okay, when you're calling up Red Bull 2 players almost every game, every time one of our guys on the first team goes down, you really have no depth. I mean, and I'm not knocking. This is not a knock on New York Red Bull 2 players. No one is saying that, but the issue is it's the roster. You can't compare an MLS roster, a team from a Major League Soccer's roster, versus a team like, okay, I'll take a wild guess. I don't know, Liga MX, Miguel. You can't. Okay, we have a team. Liga MX have teams. Okay, squad A, B, and C. And we're going to be playing those boys pretty soon. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't. I mean, you watch your beloved Arsenal. They got teams. Except in your case, A, B, C, and D. Manchester United. A, B, C, and D. Okay? Teams. We got a team. First squad and maybe half a second squad. Which is probably the reason why they made some changes, okay, as far as the roster rules are concerned, MLS, and they're finally giving the teams what they want, okay, to be able to expand the roster and get quality players on the field. That brings in fans. And for more in that department, we're going to bring in our old friend Anthony Merced after the break, because the last time we spoke to him, a lot of stuff happened with the Red Bulls and the league. So sit tight, boys and girls. We'll be back in 30 seconds. For those signed in for the live show, get your questions ready because I'm sure he got lots of answers. See you in 30. Okay, Anthony Merced is back. A month ago, he dropped some knowledge. He's back to drop even some more knowledge. After that, we're going to talk about Vancouver Whitecaps FC, the next team that's going to invade the Cathedral. Anthony, we all saw the game. Some of us were impressed to the degree. Some of us were basically shaking our heads to a major degree. But remember what I said about the glass half empty and the glass half full? That's how fans are looking at it. But in your case, there's something even more. I'll just lead things off, and then Carlos, Miguel, he's all yours.
Boy, what do you guys want to know? Let's start there.
What do we all want to know? Who's coming? What's on the horizon? Who are we signing? What's going on?
So, from the words of Sandro Schwarz in training last week, there will be nothing in this MLS window. And I want to be very specific to that because there are what we know as the European transfer windows, which is normally January to the end of February. And then there's June or July 1st to August 31st. MLS windows are larger, but that does not mean that you can bring in international players in that window. It means you can make deals within Major League Soccer in that window. And Sandro said essentially, no deals will be made before the MLS transfer deadline, which I believe is scheduled for some either midnight tonight or tomorrow at midnight. I can't remember which date it is. But essentially, they won't be bringing anyone in intra-league now. But they have said that they are targeting players for the summer window. And we know for a fact that they targeted players in the winter window that just didn't happen. So they are making moves. They know that in particular, center back and striker are positions they're looking at. And those are the ones that the expectations are they will be bringing players into.
Now, Anthony, MLS just changed the rules, right? Or are those in effect now?
No.
Okay.
They are not in effect. They until the league. So the main issue is the league needs to run it past the Players Association. They have to agree to it, and then the league will come out with an official statement on that. I don't want to waste too much time, but we can talk about that. It is an increase in the salary cap. It is either a dismissal or an increase of the designated player rule. So there will be major changes, but the MLSPA will need to approve of that before anything is official.
And wasn't there a change of the actual size of the roster, or no?
There will be
okay.
potentially, yes. There will be an expansion of the size of the roster as well.
Okay, Vincent Escobar is leading up with a very question in the evening. He said, do you expect any players to be sold in the summer, Anthony?
I'm never going to say no to that because there's always probably players that are moving in and out. I don't think it'll be anyone major that we know about unless someone has really angered Sandro Schwartz, but I don't think that they have yet. I think he really does like depth in key positions that he has at the moment.
The one question I have to ask, and this is coming from a lot of folks, they're wondering why is the Red Bulls having such a very have the inability to get the players that are needed? Is it because they don't see that they need those players, or is it incompetence, or is it what is the case? Because when you see teams around the league, they seem to get those ballers. They seem to get those guys that for some reason they can't. Or is it because they're locked down to the system? Now, you and I have constantly had these conversations, and we know that which we're able to dismiss outright, and those were like, that's a good, fair question. Throughout the years that we've been following, you and I have been writing and following this team, I think it's something in the more of they're trying to get that right baller that they can able to put in and make an impact, a la Forsberg. They knew Forsberg was a good guy. They knew how he was able to, run the house over in Leipzig. Are they trying to get a baller on that model? Your thoughts?
Well, they got the baller. They got Forsberg. Trying to be a mind reader as much as possible, and I said this last time I was on the pod, they look at having a healthy Van Zier, a healthy Lewis Morgan, and Emil Forsberg as almost like 3 new signings. And to be honest, they've delivered as if they had 3 new signings so far this year. That doesn't mean that they're still not looking into the market, but they feel at this point like they've got the production out of these players that they did not have at all last year. So they're feeling pretty good about the moves that they made both last year with Dante, 2 years ago with Lewis, and now with Emil now to have a front 3 that is pretty effective. And I don't think they haven't been at this point.
Yeah, they were talking about John Tolkien. This is the chat around Tolkien will pick up around the Olympics and what his performance looks like if he gets on the field. Maybe, Lisa, maybe. And the reason why for that is because John himself wants to stick around. He definitely wants to stick around on the team to see where this is going. But if he does have a great performance, maybe 1 or 2 teams from Europe may want to take a look at him and, kick the tires and send him on his way. What I've also been finding out is that a lot of the kids, regardless of what team that you follow, even in MLS, they go to Europe, they stay a little bit, and then somehow they come right back because, coaches in those leagues, you have to have a very high profile, high ceiling to even stick around in the club, or you're going to wind up being like Tyler Adams. He's being bounced around literally from club to club to club to club. He's now with Bournemouth, but he's not a starter. That team, they're gonna try him out and see what and who knows? Maybe he'll stick around after the season, and maybe not. That's you get it.
So I want to put Tyler Adams is on an island of his own because he would be a starter if the guy can stay healthy. But he's got way too many issues going on, whether it be the hamstring, knees, his hip, everything. But other American players, I'll use Caden Clark as an example, are being brought in with starting in a position where they are not expected to ever even break the first team. So I think the fan perspective of when we're following this guy, he's scoring goals and he goes there as OMG, why aren't they breaking into the first team? We don't know how those teams are perceiving those signings to be, and they may be, I need an extra body on the bench. And for us, that's disappointing, but for them, that's what they want. But that might not necessarily be what's best for the player in their development at the moment. Maybe best for their pocketbook, but that's a different story entirely.
Second question coming up. This is from Mark Coates. Has the team given up on the project player or the dumpster diving that we have done in the past?
Dumpster depends on what you call dumpster diving.
For
But
repair.
project player, absolutely not. I mean, they've there's a lot of project players in this. Edelman is a project player that's come through. We've seen Peter Stroud is another one that came through. Unfortunately, he won't be featuring so much this year.
For a while.
He was going to be a striker. Sorry, a main player. You're looking at Cam Harper, Wiki Carmona. There's lots of project players on this team that are definitely at places. Dumpster diving, I mean, I get the comment of Bradley Wright Phillips as a dumpster diver, and I know that a lot of people don't want to think that. It kind of was in the world football sense. I don't think that they're looking at that necessarily, but they may be looking for works in progress.
Okay. Guzman, of course, is the sporting director for the team, and Vincent coming up with some man, he's really dealing with. What's Guzman like, and what markers is he looking for players? Also, how much control does he have when signing said players?
We don't know yet. Hopefully in the next few weeks, we're trying to have an interview with him.
Also, he just got here.
Yeah. But we're trying to do an interview with him, not to talk about what are you going to do, but to understand what your job is in the organization. So once we have that interview, we'll be able to talk about kind of, what is it that you do? What does the organization ask of you? Because Red Bull does not operate the way other MLS teams do. My belief is his job is more interior domestically than it is where Joachim Schneider is worried about the signings from, Austria, Belgium, or wherever else. But hopefully we'll get an interview with him and he can tell us that himself.
Speaking of, Mark, again, how much interest does Leipzig have in our current roster?
So Leipzig is a hard nut to crack right now because they have changed their mentality over the last 2 years. The last 2 years, they have felt that they should have been where Bayer Leverkusen is now, which is either winning the league or knocking Bayern Munich off the ledge. They have missed that boat, but they are a knockout Champions League team. They are a constant Champions League group stage team. They will be because more than likely now, whether or not they finish fifth, Germany is expected to get the fifth spot in the Champions League when it expands. Germany and Italy are both expected to get that due to their production in European competition. So Leipzig is not necessarily looking to pilfer young talent anymore. They're looking for talent that is on the cusp to be the next big thing. And I don't know if that's existing right now at Red Bull.
So so we're lucky not to be picked because we don't have anything in there.
Yeah, don't pick the depth anymore.
Don't pick the depth anymore. I mean, it was a good narrative while it lasted, where we would just basically a stepchild of the Red Bull hierarchy. But as I kept preaching to everybody, every club within the Red Bull ethos is basically their own independent club, and they do whatever the heck they like. It's only who's running the club that people should be looking at as a suspect. But hey, this is why we're here. We try
now
to get
it's
those
Mario. It's a different world now.
It's much different. Yeah.
New York Red Bulls are not looked at as a feeder system anymore.
Not anymore.
They are looked at as a team that is meant to produce. So the idea is not build talent here and send it to Europe. The idea is bring talent here to make them win.
Correct. And that's basically what, the Red Bull, folks over there in Austria, they're saying, hey, okay, enough is enough. We know we play in a very important market. We're getting screamed at by MLS. We need to start winning. We need to start putting, we need to start putting together some wins. And of course, bringing Forsberg, of course, was just simply part one of that project. They're looking to build for the next couple of years. He's going to be here for about a bit, maybe was it 2-3 years, I guess, before he calls it quits?
I believe it's 2 with an option for 3.
For 3, yeah. Right? Okay. So best believe they're definitely working on that while the getting is good, because it's kind of funny. They went from a dark place, Anthony, to something where we see now, and we like what we see. But fans want more because they've been starving for it for a very long time. It's good. It's just gonna. It's
you
like
gotta wait. It's only been 9 games.
I mean, you can't do as my uncle always said. You can't take a cruise ship and do a K-turn. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, they were going in one direction, but now they're saying up. Wrong direction. All right, we got to turn this big boat around.
And this is the best case sscenario. I mean, who's in front of them? Lionel Messi. Oh, gosh darn, why aren't they better? Well, and they would be if they win the game in hand.
Yeah, if they won that game in hand, to see like that. Okay. Other news, okay, and this has to deal with our good friends over Gotham FC went down to Washington, D.C., and unfortunately, it did not go very well. 2-0 loss. Miss Bethune and Miss Hatch with a penalty. Bethune in the first 41st minute, Hatch in the 69th minute. For all the noise, and I don't mean this in a negative fashion, guys, of all the noise that we heard about Gotham FC, they were bringing in players, left and right. The ownerships. So I was also making notes. It was like, wait till this year after they won the championship. So I'm just going to be as, nice about it as possible. So I'm going to ask all 3 of you guys, including our friends, of course, in the studio, in the live audience. Is Gotham in trouble?
Do you want me to start?
Yep.
Sure.
Is Gotham in trouble?
Yes, but it's a top to bottom problem. Coach Juan Carlos Osorio has a very specific style of play, which is what won them the title. But the roster build in the offseason has given him injury woes. It's giving him players that were constantly going to be pulled away from him. And the problem is his style of play requires players to play with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think at any point this season he has had a full team. So what he is doing is he's asking players to do things and make moves knowing each other that they just simply can't do. And they're just not firing. And it's not going to get better this year because of the Olympics, which was expected.
Mm-hmm.
But then and I'm going to be
almost half the team is going to be gone.
I'm going to be very critical of this. A competition that absolutely no one in their right minds asked for in this knockoff Leagues Cup with the Liga MX women, that I'm just like, didn't even know Liga MX had a women's division. Nobody's asked.
Femini that's the actual technical term for it.
And Gotham is going to play their game in Philly. Against DC. So this is a complete and utter disaster of a season when it comes to the start. Now, they can always rebound, they can always make the playoffs, and they can make up for it then, but it is really, really difficult, and they need to get these players healthy in the squad and pass the Olympics and keep it close enough in the standings so that when everybody's back and healthy, they can make their run.
Carlos Miguel, you agree on this estimate?
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, I think everything Anthony said is spot on. The not having players healthy is always of concern, right? And then you get off to such a start, and it's always harder to pick up the pace when you get off to such a rocky start, right? But again, where it's a league um, that relies on playoffs, right? And so again, to Anthony's point, if they're able to keep it close enough where they can sneak in, and that's sort of what they did last season,
Yeah.
and made their run, then
Mm-hmm.
that's what they need to do, right? And so you play with the cards that you're dealt, and hopefully they'll be able to keep themselves treading above water and get into the playoffs, and then take it from there.
Yeah, and the other big thing is that they lost their star player from last year to an ACL injury.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah,
right
Mitch
then and
Purse,
there.
yeah.
Mitch Purse, yeah.
She's gone. She gone. And it was a huge hole. So then the Gotham FC's next home game, ladies and gentlemen, would be a Red Bull Arena kickoff at 5:00 on Sunday. The game will, of course, if you can't make it to the arena, the game will be on MSG Network, and they're taking on Racing Louisville. What a name, Racing Louisville. Meanwhile, over in Chester, well, we had a Andres Ray sighting. Now, I'm not sure why folks was having a cow over this, or wondering why he was being done, but this is something that soccer teams do all the time. I mean,
Okay.
Go ahead, Anthony. I know. I officially set him off.
It did. It set me off. So, my first beat was New York Red Bulls 2 in 2015. From my first tangential MLS beat was New York Red Bulls 2. They always
2016. Me.
Yeah, so you know this, right? Like,
right. Mm-hmm.
If they could find a moment to get a player minutes when they can't get minutes in the MLS squad, they did it. It was, Mera played the entire 2016 season.
Right, they had to put him somewhere, right?
While sitting on the bench for the first team. So there is no conspiracy to this. What it is he's got a 2-game suspension, get him minutes on the 2 team, and move on. That's all it is. I remember John Walnick once, I asked him, and I can't remember the player it was in 2015, 2016, where something similar happened. And I asked him, I actually asked him off the record, like, is this a punishment? And he goes, no, we just, like, what's it good? Is it better for him to be on the field or on the treadmill? And so on the field is the
perfect
answer.
Question, right? Perfect question. I mean, you're not gonna run this guy around laps while he's on suspension. Some of the fans think he should, but
different story
altogether. But this is what teams do, by the way. And of course, they went down to Philadelphia, and it was kind of crazy to a degree that Chester is one of those places where the former Bethlehem Steel squad, and they tied it 1-1. Davis in the 56th minute. You got Steven Sawada. Man, this guy's scoring left and right on the 14th minute. Of course, Philadelphia Union 2-1 in penalties, 4-2. And even despite that loss, the way MLS Next Pro is set up, the Red Bulls are still undefeated. It's the most craziest thing I've ever saw. Yes, it's like hockey.
It's like hockey, right? Like, it's like an overtime loss. And by the way, I saw in the comments somebody asked, like, why is Reyes allowed to be here while also being suspended? I just want to address that real quick. MLS Next Pro is a completely different league. They are a 3rd division. And in England, in Spain, you can play suspended players in that league in your reserve league. So that is why he is not suspended from every game around the world. He is just suspended from a Major League Soccer game. So that's an answer to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if necessary, you can put him on loan to another team if there's no space for him, just to to hang out there for about a while and get some training. And this is done to just about every club around the world. This isn't this isn't new. Sometimes I wonder some people just started watching soccer yesterday. Uh, but
No, but I just wanted to, because actually I had that conversation with my wife today, and I said, had it not been like in Major League Baseball when guys are suspended, if it wasn't for the MLB Players Association, guys would be taking swings on the Pawtucket Red Sox, but they can't, right? Like that is a contract issue. But the way suspensions are handed out, they would totally do that. But with MLS, get your games in a lower division, yeah, and they can do it.
Yeah, because this shouldn't be allowed. He's being punished by the league.
Well, that's a different question.
That's a different question.
I can't answer that. If you think that
I'm not the commissioner,
then cool, go for it.
I mean, I get where John is coming from, but I ain't the commissioner. So that's people would basically, do things. And kudos for the team to basically just use the rules to their favor. And the reason why I said when guys are suspended, they can't just move on to another team and play. Yeah, they can, as long as it's permitted. There's only one group, John, that can actually put a stop to that, and that is the Confederation. They can just say, "Oh, nope, can't do that. He's got to serve out a suspension." But as we all know, CONCACAF really doesn't have a whole lot of teeth in a lot of areas, especially when it comes to MLS. Because if that was the case, we would have Pro Rel.
But he is serving his suspension. He's serving his MLS suspension, so he is actually serving it.
That's correct. He just can't go to another team, as Lisa puts it out. Just he can't move to another MLS team. You can only move him down to reserves, and everyone knows that it is a reserve league. By the way, New York Red Bulls 2 will be facing Columbus Crew 2 at MSU Soccer Park, and that'll be Sunday. Once again, kickoff is at 5:00. And that game will be, of course, on Apple TV, which I'm finding it very difficult to find games that,
So hard.
I mean, I don't get this. Are they deliberately? I mean, last year they were right there. It was like, oh, here we go. And
the interface on Apple TV, in my opinion, got worse from last year.
I agree.
It was bad last year. It's worse this year.
Well,
it's almost like they're sending a message. You don't want to see this game, so we're going to put it off to the side.
I have to ask, Carlos, are you accessing it from a non-Apple device?
Most of the time, yes.
Yeah, so I understand that. Yeah. Apple is an absolute terror if you're not accessing it from an Apple device.
Right. If you have your iPhone, you have a MacBook, you have a Mac, easy peasy.
Last year, the biggest thing was, especially at the beginning, and I don't know if it got any better, quite frankly, as the season went on, but trying to find replays of the game after the fact was literally hidden, like at the bottom of a page when you would scroll through the interface. It was ridiculous.
That's easier now.
Yeah. It is.
That's easier now. Right. That's easier now.
Thankfully, because I remember the first game I had I had a panic attack about like, where am I going to watch this replay? I need to do a post game analysis. And then I remember, Gary, I think I texted you.
Yeah.
And then we both figured out you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page.
It was like, oh, there it is.
Now it is thankfully up higher in the page, and you just pick replay or full game. But that was not the case in the first few weeks of the season last year.
It was nuts.
It was nuts. Of course, we can't complete the show, of course, with a little bit of Vancouver Whitecaps FC. Of course, we were keeping it, which is the Red Bulls' next opponent. Carlos, this is where you come in, and you tell us all about this team where somehow, under the radar, they're sitting right behind LA Galaxy, and they're in the same position the Red Bulls are.
They sure are.
Funny how that happens, right? no stars, no big names, nothing that would make the folks over in Madison Avenue, squeal with absolute like a teenager, at a Beatles concert. But but there they are, second place in the West, right behind LA Galaxy, who are back. They're back. I mean, after they finished off the California with the California Classical versus San Jose and held on for dear life to do it, but there they are in first place. What I mean, I'll let you take over from here. About Vancouver, I mean, how good are they?
Well, here's the biggest catch. As they come into Red Bull Arena on Saturday night, 7:30 kickoff on Apple TV, of course. They are undefeated on the road. And so they will come into town with an undefeated record, and will look to keep that intact, right? As they hit the road and they come east. I think we made the point earlier how West Coast trips tend to really not be in anyone's favor, quite frankly. I don't think teams have historically fared super well when they make the long trip. So hopefully Vancouver gets some of that and they don't come in at their very best. But as we mentioned earlier, old friend Brian White comes in. He is the goal leader on that squad with 4 goals. So he'll come back into town to see some familiar faces in the crowd and on the other side in terms of this team that he's facing. But yeah, I mean that's the one thing that has me kind of raising my eyebrow and interested in the match. Obviously, is the fact that Vancouver's coming in, like you said, Gary. They're sort of flying under the radar. They're in second place, 5-1-2 record so far on the season, but they're undefeated on the road. So it will be interesting to see how that takes effect with them coming into Red Bull Arena on Saturday night.
This is their first East Coast visit, by the way, this season. The only time they've traveled from the Pacific Northwest is that they hung around basically in the West Coast all this time. The last time they faced, of course, was over in Dallas, where they won 3-1 against FC Dallas. And they're quite the crew. I mean, when you see Brian White, excuse me, and he's doing pretty well over there. You brings a smile to your face, but then you want to go out and strangle the people that traded him, and then we get stuck with guys like Barlow and everybody else. Hindsight being 2020, but once again we're seeing ex-players who played for Red Bull and flourish. They do quite well once they leave here. So.
That might have to do with the. I think at some point the powers that be here don't think that certain players are good in the system. Okay.
Yes, again.
No. I'm saying then they go off to other teams that play actual football. Okay, and they do well. That's just my take.
I'm not gonna say that Vancouver plays quote unquote football, but I understand what you're saying completely. Yeah. I think Brian White was a strategical release essentially for the Red Bulls. I think that if they could redo it, they would keep him 100%. He had 15 goals last season. He's working really well in the very compact system that Vancouver is working right now. And look, much love to them, man. They are getting it done in a very tough scenario. That building is very hard to play home games in. It's an artificial turf. They have to make travels that are quite difficult. So good on them, man. Like I don't care about Vancouver, but at the same time, I'm like, good on you when I see them higher up the table.
Another guy that the Red Bulls need to keep an eye on and hopefully keep off the scoreboard was Ryan Gold. This guy, they become quite a terrific strike tandem, him and White, and they're going to give the Red Bull defense weakened, by the way, because, well, we still have a suspension. We still have to deal with injuries here and there. But this is going to turn out to be quite a game. Quite a game. Though. Go ahead, Miguel.
Gary, I don't know if you want to talk about that. Our friend Andres Reyes was given an extra game suspension. Okay?
So he'd be playing. With Red Bulls too at home. That's exactly where he will be while his mates are dealing with Vancouver on Saturday. Speaking of which, let's go with fearless predictions. Carlos, of course, naturally you're in second place, followed by sitting looking directly up at Lon Ray. Miguel, you're underneath Carlos. Then we got Mr. Coates, and then I'm at the bottom of the list here, so I need a win here, trying to keep up with everybody. So, Carlos, I'm going to leave it up to you first. Your bold prediction for the game: New York Red Bulls versus Vancouver Whitecaps at the Cathedral.
We end the Vancouver away winning streak. I say the Red Bulls win 2-1.
2-1. Miguel.
Vancouver 3-1.
Ooh.
Brian White with 2. Okay, so.
Ooh. Ooh. You decided to be the Darth Vader of the group there, but
all right.
Now, Anthony, you represent basically all of the guests on the show, so it's a very collective. So right now you're sitting at third place collectively. Your thoughts for your bold prediction for this match?
So given that Vancouver is not one of the higher goal scorers with better defensive teams, I would agree. I would think that this is I'll say this is a 3-1 Red Bull win. I think they're good enough to score 1 goal, but I think that Red Bull will be enough to get over this hump.
I'm gonna go with a pedestrian 2-0 win, and I'll explain why.
Pedestrian.
Pedestrian. I'm gonna look. I need a win. I'm dead last. Okay, but
pedestrian. You're predicting a win and a shutout.
Yeah, I mean, mainly because this team has picked up a very peculiar habit, right? They either lose or they draw, and then the next game they go right back at it. They're like, you know what, we got to get this taste out of our mouth, and I'm holding that also serve. Because many of the players we talked to after the LA game, they were quite disappointed they didn't get the 3 points that they wanted. But the last thing they want to do is mess up at home. They really want to make that place a fortress. And the squad that they got right now, they're able to do it. This is why people like watching this team, and they like how they play. So although the final score may not be what it is, but I'm expecting a win from that bunch, especially after they came so close,
Gary,
of coming up with the knockout punch. Go ahead, Miguel.
I was expecting a win against Chicago, Gary. Come on, all right? So.
Yeah. I mean, but then what happened, right? They get trounced 3-0, and they were able to get 3 goals past those guys. We couldn't even get 1. I mean, it's annoying. So
I have a question about this prediction system here. Does this work like spades? Can you do just a blind call? I don't know how many people, either you guys or the audience, plays spades, but like when you're down enough, you could do a blind double call before the hand is even dealt.
The points rule
knows what I'm talking about.
I've been to be truthful, I've been sitting in the basement now for almost a month. I'm still trying to figure out how that happened, but at least I got 1 win to my name. So I just don't have enough points to overtake these guys. So that's basically where it is right now.
Carlos is like the kind of guy that would yell at a cousin who reneged on a hand.
Yes.
Hey, listen. I am predicting a win tomorrow. Okay, so there you go.
You better win tomorrow. It ain't a prediction. You better win tomorrow. You better win and hope. That's how it is with your
Thank you.
You better win and hope. That's basically it. Win tomorrow and hope everybody you're chasing lose. That's how the way that's the situation where you guys are right now.
That's what I'm hoping. Yeah.
Anthony, tell the whole wide world where they're gonna find you when it's all said and done here.
Yeah, you can go to our site, ajmsportsfc.com. We cover both the New York Red Bulls and NYCFC. I know that is the evil term. Also on YouTube at AJM Sports FC to see not just training day videos and interviews from coaches, but also with JJ Pavlik of Bad Dog Sports. We do a show called The 11, which is a little bit of a documentary style show that we're working on each week that breaks down us at the games each and every week. Same thing on Twitter, AJM Sports FC. So please, if you have any questions or you want to check out any articles, go there. And that's where you can check it all out.
All right. I guess we'll see you next month, of course, with more download. Of course, the door is always open. Good
We're not going to talk Gerhard Struber?
Oh, my God, please. Oh.
We're not going to go there.
No, please, come on.
We're not going to go there. I mean, this is the team he wanted, right? And somehow he got kicked. Well, what are you going to do, right? Of course, as always, ladies and gentlemen, we really thank you very much for listening for this last hour. Don't forget, of course, our episodes are uploaded the very next day on Spotify.com, of course, our YouTube channel, and, of course, Goals.tv. We have finally solved that knuckleheaded uploaded system. I mean, they've reached out to us and they apologized. So we're going to be able to get our episodes up there as well. And of course, on our YouTube channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe so you can be alerted on our next podcast, which takes place next week. Lon Ray Badmus will be with us. And of course, Mark Coates. He's right now watching the Knicks game, and he's probably banging his head against the wall right about now.
Happy anniversary to Mark, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And his wife.
And his wife. Happy anniversary to that. Of course, we always love to have him here. The coach will be with us next week. Well, 105 episodes, one more to go, a long season to go. So, ladies and gentlemen, for Carlos Cano, Miguel Nunez, and of course, Anthony Merced, thanks so much for joining us. We will see you next week. Until then, thanks for coming, folks. We'll see you again. Goodbye for now.